Well, it has been 4 days since Title 42 expired, and this morning migrants continue to be processed at our border.
So joining us to talk about all these changes now at our border, legal analyst Dan Eaton. So good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Good to be with you guys.
Yeah. Now, we do want to ask, of course, under this new version of Title 8, you know, we've been covering the many migrants. We were there last week seeing them in San Ysidro, now huge group in Jacumba. So what happens to those people? Are they disqualified basically for coming because they came in, and now what happens?
Well, not necessarily. Remember, there are two different ways that they can arrange for asylum. One is through the Customs and Border Patrol app, CBP1 app. The other, of course, is by initially seeking asylum and being denied asylum by the country through which they are passing, which obviously doesn't apply to migrants who are originating in Mexico. So these policies are going to be in place now. They will apply to those who are there, but the asylum process is not easy, and it's not designed to be easy. So this idea that the border is open is wrong. On top of that, you have these additional restrictions that make it harder to seek asylum on Friday than it was on Thursday.
Right.
But will those restrictions hold up in court? There are challenges. So there's all kinds of fun law issues to talk about.
I do want to just touch on that, because a lot of the people who made it here to our border didn't know they needed to go stop in another country, their first stop, ask for asylum there. Obviously, they thought they could come here and then they'd go through the process.
But Netta, here's what's complicating this on top of everything. Who would you normally consult for that? An attorney. And yet one of the new rules is cutting the time you have to get an attorney for a credible fear interview from 48 hours to 24 hours. And if you flunk that interview, back you go. And you can't come back for 5 years. So there are all these layers that are going on. And to your point, these people aren't aware of all of this unless they're watching CBS 8.
Can you touch on the legalities of what we saw unfold there at the border when people were just sitting there lying in the dirt for several days just with a trash bag over them? What were some of the legal implications or issues involved with that?
Eric, the legal implications are, of course, because when you're talking about asylum, you're talking about both U.S. law with respect to Immigration and Nationality Act and international law with respect to how you're supposed to treat refugees. That's why you have this sort of cross current of law going on. On the one hand, you have this obligation to treat people in a humane way. On the other hand, you have this issue of protecting your border and making sure that those who are genuinely fearing or running from persecution, it's not enough that they had economic hardship, are seeking asylum. Because if they're not, if that's not why they're coming over, because of persecution, because of a membership in a particular group, they have no business seeking asylum in the first place. And there are criminal consequences, by the way, to their attempt to get over here if they don't have a credible fear that weren't present when they were simply being turned away summarily when the Title 42 policy now expired, was in effect.
Okay, interesting. So for those groups that have been left out there, you know, for waiting for Border Patrol to take them in the vans and process them and go through the system, a lot of humanitarian aid workers have been watching this very closely, saying that is not allowed. They shouldn't have been left for 6-7 days in the dirt with a granola bar. What are your thoughts on that? Will there be more, you know, lawsuits possibly about this?
Well, what you're going to see, Ned, is what you are already seeing, which is that they're speeding this up and so forth. And then on top of that, you have this issue of, well, what about those who are being caught and released without a court date? Well, a Florida judge just on Thursday said, no, you can't do that. That exceeds your legal authority. They have to at least have a court date to go through the process of immigration, of asylum seeking, before you can simply release them. So you have all of these issues that you are all raising that all are implicated by this change in policy. A shift in policy is going to result in a shift in behavior, at least among officials who are responsible for our border, even if not among the migrants who, after all, can't really be expected to keep up with the latest shifts in policy.
If we're confused about it. You can only imagine people who don't speak our language, what they're going through, traveled thousands of miles.
But to your point, we're not just talking about people who are in Mexico or even Central America and so forth. You're talking about all over the world, 280 million stateless people, and only a few of those are here in America. It raises all kinds of complications, humanitarian, legal, ethical, all kinds of issues. But the legal stuff is what I'm here to talk about.
A lot in flux here, that's for sure.
Immigration attorneys in high demand.
Yes, seriously.
Very, very high demand.
Very busy time for that. Dan, thanks for coming in here this
Eric,
morning.
It was good to be with you guys.
Always appreciate your time.
Belated Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you very much.